to.
Do we have a roll call, please?
My memory.
President Mateusz,
Present.
Commissioner Shane Crawley,
Present.
Commissioner Slater Carter,
Here.
Mr. Tomrat,
Present.
Commissioner Zemke.
Here. Okay, this is the time when we have public comments. The public may address the Board of Harbor Commissioners for a limit of 2 minutes, unless a request is granted for more time on any item of public interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the San Mateo County Harbor District that is not on the regular agenda. If a member of the public wishes to address the board on an agenda item, it is requested that the member of the public wait until the item is in discussion before following the instructions provided on making a public comment. The chair will call your name at the appropriate time. An agenda may be reviewed online. All right, we have a public comment from a fisherman in the harbor, Steve Trousseau. Steve, we've approached the podium and
thank you, guys. Have a talk again about the search and rescue operations and how the 24/7 capability has been diminished. I think this is a big deal for public safety, because if it's after 5 o'clock, the patrolman can't respond to an incident. And I don't know what you put the value on a human life. Maybe it's worth a set of plans for something that maybe we're just not going to build. You know, what's happening here is your operations staff, the people who operate the facility, these aren't just good public servants. These are excellent public servants. They got big concerns about the direction that you're actually taking this. You know, and I don't really know what you can immediately do about that. Anytime you have 100% of your staff not believing in the direction you're going, it's a vote of what would be considered a vote of no confidence. Well, any other public agency would have to do something about that. I don't know what your policy is for that. You know, I don't have a lot of time here, but I've sort of seen commissions and general managers, I've seen them come and go. And what can kind of happen with some of this, and I don't know if it's happening here yet, maybe it's a little early to tell, but you get things like the ego coming in, and the arrogance, and the ignorance, and the hubris. You know, it starts turning into this like pompous vanity project. And the public's safety is really at stake with this issue. I really think that let's get that 24/7 service back in there, whatever we got to do. And then I've seen we've developed committees. I think that's a very good idea, because we can prevent this from happening in the future. So we can't just replace public safety with another layer of bureaucracy. I know you guys. I mean, I can see it in your eyes. I know Virginia. She wants to be a good politician. I know Tom and George does. You probably all want to be good politicians. But maybe you just don't understand. You have the power, but maybe you don't know how to wield it. You can create a fiscally responsible district. You can set the tempo for personal conduct. And it's sort of simple. It's relatively simple to do. All you guys really need to do is you just do the right thing for the right reason. And you know what? If it doesn't work out, that's okay. That's okay. Because you did the right thing for the right reason. And I don't know, I think we're a little bit off track on this particular issue. You know,
thank you, Mr. Trousseau.
Thank you, guys. You know, thank you. You guys have a good morning and enjoy your meeting. Okay. All right. Bye, guys. Bye. It's good to see you again, sweetheart. It was fun. Bye.
All right, time for some commissioner comments. Any of my commissioners have comments? This little thing under here. We have any commissioner comments?
I have none.
All right, I'll start. To Washington DC lobbying for more infrastructure and support from our various legislators. As required for if we're going to have harbor expenses. I wanted to mention that. The group I was in, for instance, we visited 10 different legislators, talked about the Port Infrastructure Development Plan, talked about WRDA, talked about working waterfronts, talked a whole lot about trying to bring additional resources to Pillar Point Harbor and Oyster Point and the Harbor District in general. Do I have any other commissioners? Commissioner Chang Corrali?
Sure, I was also at the conference and I thought it was very informative and very useful because we were able to actually sit down and meet with the actual legislators and their staff, but the legislators themselves were there. And I thought that they were very attentive and they wanted to hear what we had to say. And Tom had mentioned some of the things that we talked about. And I was in a different group from Tom. And the one thing that really came out of the groups the conversations that I had with our group was the need to really define the projects that you want to focus on for housing purposes. And actually Congress member Garamendi also mentioned that there are funds for different categories. If we were looking at different categories, maybe we can get funding for each category, which would give us funding for more projects than not. So, just looking at which projects we want to fund is really important. We were talking about their work as well with at their advocacy. And so Congress member Napolitano was, who's been very, very supportive, was very interested in not just hearing about dredging, but also our water rescue program or the lack of water rescue program and public safety. So, and that started to be an issue, but dredging even is continued and infrastructure continue to be issues. And at the federal level, we were talking about dredging within within the national marine sanctuaries, right? And the authority, the permitting process that we've had to go through and the overlap between the two sanctuaries. So, they know that these are issues that we're concerned about and they want to work with us. And, hopefully we can galvanize the entire CMAC group and work together on that. So I don't know, Jim, if that's what you got from, Jim was in my group too. Okay, so then the other thing is regarding, I got some phone calls about the airplane crash in in Ross Cove. And I just want to say that I'm glad that we're going to have an ad hoc committee on search and rescue, because I think we had fairly limited not capabilities, but the capacity to do the work that I think is expected of us. And that the limited resources include, like the funding for this and the training that's really needed for risk mitigation and risk assessment for our first responders who are in our harbor patrol crew who would be facing danger. So anyway, I got a call from some of the friends of the passengers who died, and we were just trying to do as much as we could to help. But I think Jim and our harbor patrol crew handled this as best as they could under the circumstances. So Jim, thanks for being out there. I mean, I know that not a lot of people were happy, but I think that under the circumstances and given the resources that we have, we did the best that we could. And I'm looking forward to having this ad hoc committee put together. And this is, by the way, can't believe this guy said that Mr. Trusso said, this is not a political issue. It bothers me that people think that it is, because it's not. And so hopefully if we need to change the narrative on that, Jim, we can be able to do that, because it's not like we're not trying to help. I mean, we want to help. So thanks for looking at creating that ad hoc committee, Tom, and let's get that thing going.
All right, thank you. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Dormer.
I also attended the meetings in Washington. I'm very grateful to the commissioners and the taxpayers for sending us. It was very eye-opening for me because in 42 years on one side of the fence, this is totally on the opposite side of the fence. So I got a much better appreciation for how things work from your level, the commissioner's level, and the level of sponsors versus being a member of the federal government workforce where we were not allowed to work and talk with congressional members directly unless that member sent a letter through the Corps and said, give us a report on something. So that was great. The other thing I want to do is go on public record and say that the people of California need to be proud that there is an example of how things can really work well. And that is this ad hoc organization called CMAQ. It is about 99% of all the ports and harbors in California, and they work extremely well. And I'll give a quick example. We were in Kevin Mullen's office and he asked us directly, what are the partisan issues, or are there partisan issues? And I had to get up and answer that, saying in my 40 years working on the government side, I never really seen it among California ports and harbors. And now working more directly with them, these ports and harbors truly, there is no partisanship. They work together. They help manage the entire program for all the ports and harbors, whether it be San Diego, LALB, or Oakland, or Pillar Point Harbor, Bodega Bay, these kinds of things. So I was very happy to see that. That message was being brought to all of our congressional members, and that worked well. I brought up two kind of major issues that really affected all of us and all the ports and harbors in California. One is the regulatory process. And I got a lot of good comments when I made a statement that said, we need a cabinet level or administrative level position that would overview all of the federal permit processes and making that more efficient. Because in our just little challenge that we've had here for our beach project, you could see all those challenges, and it gets a lot worse than that too. So they wrote those down, and that's something that they can work on to really look at, not arguing with Endangered Species Act or Clean Water Act or NEPA or any of that, but looking at the individual process of how an agency does their reviews. So maybe there can be some improvements there. And then bringing it more specifically to our harbor, the future challenges of how we're going to be affected by the marine sanctuary, whether it be for offshore clean energy, whether it be for potential sand sources, for beach nourishment, and so forth. So it was a great experience, and have a much better appreciation for what it takes to get things done, whether big or small. So thank you. Sorry for taking so much time.
Commissioner Slater Carter.
First, I think your comment about partisan and harbor districts is important, because I don't see that this board, in all the years I've been following it, has ever taken a political position. It's always been about safety and economics and serving the community. There have been lots of different opinions, but they're not based on any political party. And I think that's important to note, and is true, frankly, of most special districts. Cities is another matter, but certainly special districts work towards their mission, not towards any political issue. And Virginia, thank you for saying you got some phone calls. I got an email on this airplane disaster, and I think, yes, the harbor district should do what it can do, but we can't make up for a larger county and state failing. If it's a problem here, it's a problem for just about everyone in the lesser populated areas. And I'm hoping that we can figure out a way that we can get the funding so we can incorporate this into the higher level of urban needs that have been coming for the last 20 years. People are demanding more and more of special districts rather than just their own mission. And but the funding doesn't come with those demands. Generally, it's a complaint about, well, you don't have enough money, you must be wasting money. No. There's a whole lot of other reasons, and in John Moran's report later he's going to talk about all the federal and state agencies we have to go through just to move a little bit of sand back to where it came from. And that costs money, and it costs money that could be used for other things. So I think safety is a critical issue. But please, don't pick on the Harbor District. Go to the Board of Supervisors, go to your state representatives and tell them they need to put money in the budget that can be apportioned out to districts who have the skills and the ability and get paid for doing that kind of work. There's no need to start a new California bureaucracy. So of course, my deep condolences are for the families and friends who of the folks who died in that. It's just a very tough thing to deal with, but I think it does point out a much larger issue than just this district. Thank you.
Any other comments?
No, I'm fine.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item E, activity reports. Our activity reports were printed in the board packet. General Manager, do you have anything to add?
Nothing to add, but I'd like to highlight a few issues to ensure awareness for everybody that we did close on the 7 plots of land above the launch ramp. So the district is now the legal owner of those plots. On water search and rescue, which is what we've been discussing already about the lack thereof. San Mateo County does not have on-water rescue, immediate on-water rescue period. And I met with both Coastside Fire to discuss this, and I met with the county undersheriff to discuss it also on what we can do to improve it. And I also discussed search and rescue with Ray Mueller, the supervisor, and he was extremely supportive and concerned and acknowledged the fact that the money needs to be located to fund the staffing to provide proper search and rescue. We did against Representative Eshu's office is supporting us on a funding for an overall general study by the Corps of Engineers that would address all the damage caused by the breakwater. And by damage, I mean the erosion on the beaches or the excessive sand buildup on other beaches. We've been doing it piecemeal in the past. And that is about it. One thing we did do to help out the coast side was we allowed PG&E to come in and basically have a forward operating base on the coast side for all their equipment and supplies, which enabled them to get the coast side back up and running much faster if they had to come over the hill all day. So that was great, and they have completely vacated the harbor as of last night, and the parking lots are all reopened.
Thank you. Operations reports. Do you have anything to add or enhance?
I'd just say that our occupancy levels at both facilities are remaining consistent, 90+% at Pillar Point Harbor and mid-70s in Oyster Point. The storms, significant winds did cause some damage to our docks and the park areas, trees falling, etc. Our staff's been doing a wonderful job, both facilities, to clean up after the storms. During the storms, our staff were walking the docks, retying boats that had lines that loosened, actually pumping out some. We lost only boats that were out, anchored out. Actually, there was one at Point Harbor that did sink at the docks as well. And we were able to help the owner and raise that boat and get it taken to a yard. Oyster Point, we only had one vessel that was actually not authorized to be in the harbor that had been abandoned, and it sunk at the dock. We're still working on that one. the staff been just doing a wonderful job. Now I'll just add to what the general manager discussed about the Army Corps, Commissioner Damrant, and also our Surfers Beach project consultant Brad Damitz and myself met with all of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers team at Surfers Beach to show them firsthand the challenges with the breakwater. And then we also walked over and looked at by the sea, at the erosion that's taking place at the shore there near the yacht club, etc. And Commissioner Damrant spoke their language, so it was really a very productive meeting with the Army Corps.
Thank you. How about administration and finance?
Before we move to administration, President Matoush, you want to say anything about James Smith? His recognition this week?
James Smith, our harbor master at Oyster Point Marina, the general manager had recommended him for Harbor Master of the Year, which he was chosen. So that was excellent recognition of the great work that the harbor district's doing for the community.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, so for the fourth year in a row, the district has been presented with the GFOA award for the outstanding budget presentation. We hope that next year for the 24-25 budget, we will again be presented with a award, and we're going to be using the newly implemented ClearGov budget system. So the presentation will look slightly different from what it is now, but it's all integrated. So it will make staff's life much easier. We don't have to change one number in multiple places. It should just carry throughout the document. In addition, we're still working on some improvements to the ERP system, and we are going to begin the automation of the HR functions in April. And January is always a very busy month for all of the admin staff, and we successfully issued the W-2s and the 1099s and all the tax reportings and the financial transactions report to the state of California. So just would like to thank all of the administrative staff and an excellent job that they continue to do. Thank you.
All right, thank you. For item F, the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve or any items wish to be pulled?
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Get a roll call on that, please.
President Matoush,
Aye.
Commissioner Jane Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Slater Carter,
Yes.
Mr. Damrant,
Yes.
Commissioner Zemke.
All right, moving on to discussion. Item G, number 1.
President Matoush,
Sir.
with the approval of all those, taking no action on nominating somebody.
Oh, I'd like to have.
I'm going to
that
withdraw my
Yeah.
my motion then, because I do have, I forgot that was on consent. I don't know. I thought it was on discussion, but it was the last item on consent.
Right.
All right, I guess we'll have a redo here.
I'll make a
So-
motion. I'm going to remove item 8 on consent. And then I'll make a motion to approve the consent items 1 through 7.
And I'll change my second to that change. For that change.
Motion second. Roll call.
President Matoush,
Aye.
Commissioner Jane Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Slater Carter,
Yes.
Commissioner Damrant,
Aye.
Commissioner Zemke.
Okay, let's go on with CSDA Board of Directors call for nominations. Seat A, General Manager Pruitt.
We received a letter from the CSDA notifying us that seat A for each region of the CSDA Board of Directors is up for re-election this year. And that includes the area encompassing San Mateo County under the Bay Area District. We have the opportunity to nominate either a staff member or a commissioner to fill that seat. And it's up to the board to either appoint somebody and agree to it, or take no action, and the board would not recommend any.
Right, commissioners, is there a comment on this? Commissioner
Yes.
Slater Carter.
I have been nominated for that seat from Montero Water and Sanitary District. And so I'm not sure whether I should step back because I am going to be running a campaign on it. Whether I can represent, well, if elected, I represent all the districts in,
San Mateo County.
no,
The
it's
region,
in the
right?
region,
Yeah,
the
but that
Bay Area
includes-
region. And so my comment is, if the board considers it, I'd love to get an endorsement from this board for that to start my campaign with. I am currently secretary of the San Mateo County CSDA and would love, and I'm working with a small group on new bylaws for it. But my plans are to win and go to Sacramento and go to the meetings. So if I don't win, I'll probably be paying more close attention anyway. One of the things I'd like to see at the CSDA is the ability for Zoom participation in the meetings, because getting people from all over the state to drive to Sacramento seems like a not particularly environmental way to run a meeting anymore. Particularly for a volunteer group like CSDA, as opposed to a publicly elected group. So that's my comment.
And as much as you've already been nominated by one group and requested an endorsement, do we need, does the board wish to supply an endorsement, or do we wish to dual nominate?
Yeah, so I was just gonna ask, what do you prefer? Because
I'd love to have a dual nomination.
Okay, well, then I'll make a motion to nominate you for the CSDA Board of Directors for seat A.
Thank you.
Second.
Is there any conflict of interest for a dual nomination and representing both groups? From legal perspective, there's no. that you see?
She wouldn't, or my opinion is she's not going to represent both groups per se. She's going to represent all groups.
Yeah,
Oh,
for the
okay.
area. for
She's
seat A.
the
Oh, okay.
region,
Okay.
Bay Area
Sounds
region.
good.
And I will say I've participated. I was just looking at some old emails. I've participated in CSDA since 2013. And actually it was before that, when I got that particular email.
All right, we have a second on this.
I'll second that. I think it's a
All right.
fantastic idea.
I think it's-
Motion and a second. May we have a roll call on nominating Commissioner Slater Carter for seat A?
Commissioner Chang Crawley,
Aye.
Commissioner Slater Carter,
Yes.
Commissioner Domrat,
Yes.
Commissioner Zemke,
Yes.
President Matoush.
Aye. All right, item G1. Ad hoc and standing committee review assignments. So Melanie, are you able to put that chart up on the board? Just so that people have an idea of what I was working with and what I've tentatively
You want the
proposed.
completed one right there?
No, the one that has 23, 24.
Okay.
So far for finance, I changed it to myself and Virginia Chang Corrali if she accepts. Human Relations, Virginia Chang Corrali and Bill Zemke if they accept. Dredging, Sediment and Management, Commissioner Dormerat and myself. Sea Level Rise, Commissioner Chang Corrali and Commissioner Domerat. Pillar Point Harbor Retail Design Center. I'm asking if we're going to continue on that design project, and if so, I would leave it like it is. Commissioner Chancarelli and Commissioner Slater Carter. Memorial recognition, Commissioner Chancarelli, Commissioner Domerat. Ocean Science Center, Commissioner Slater Carter and Commissioner Domerat.
Sorry.
Search and Rescue Maritime Assist, Commissioner Chancarelli and myself. I'm looking for a volunteer for Pillar Point Breakwater Environmental Impact. I've got Commissioner Domerat so far. I'd like to have one more.
Oh, I can, yeah, I'll volunteer for that.
Okay,
Sorry, I'm having some issues here. Sorry.
okay. Logo Committee, I've put myself on it. I'm looking for a volunteer on the Logo Committee.
I'll volunteer for that too.
Oyster
That's
Point,
ad hoc, right?
yes.
Yeah.
Oyster Point Marina, last year was Commissioner Slater Carter and Commissioner Zemke. Since Commissioner Zemke lives in that area, I'm looking for someone else to serve on the Oyster Point Marina Program Liaison Committee.
I'm happy to do it. And I can give up something else.
Hey, Jane Crowley. Army Corps of Engineers, I don't think we need a second person on that one. We have a very experienced person. Person's got so much experience, he basically fills two people's roles. And
One-man band.
San Mateo County One Shoreline, a new liaison committee for 2024.
You should do that.
I think Virginia and I would be willing to do that.
You want one or two people?
Two.
Okay.
So it's a committee.
Ad hoc, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's meeting with another agency, it would have to be treated like a standing committee.
Even though the agency is not an elected body.
So an ad hoc can only be comprised of less than a majority of the legislative body. But if it's with another agency or with staff and it's a established committee, then it's got to be a standing committee. So I don't know all the details other than what you just said about what this committee would do.
I think we're just going to keep an eye on One Shoreline.
Liaison should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Liaison would meet that purpose.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think Catherine should do it.
I'll do it with Virginia as my alternate.
Okay,
Good.
that's fine.
And the only one that's left is continuing the Pillar Point Harbor Retail Design. Last year, Commissioner Chancarelli and Commissioner Slater Carter. Do you two wish to continue?
Well, do
I'd
we
like to
need it?
I'd like to continue that just in case anything comes up. I'm not sure. We need to look at issues such as how much money we've already spent and funding, because a lot of our money is going now towards meeting environmental bureaucracy demands on the projects we're trying to get done. And we only have a certain amount of money in our budget, and but I think we need to keep abreast of what's going on and continue, not necessarily meeting with the architects, that gets very expensive, but keep track of the trends.
You and Catherine should be on it since you're here.
Recommendation would be just the retail center
Right.
subcommittee versus the retail design.
Like that.
Right.
You're
Okay.
talking about, you're going beyond design now.
Yeah, I'm
That's why
going
I'm
into
thinking
an overall view.
Well, I mean, I think President Mateo should be on that. I'm on a lot of committee. I didn't know I didn't be on that many, but I'm happy to do it. But I think that you know the harbor so well too, Tom.
Right, I'll accept that nomination and
okay?
I'll give this to you, Melanie, just to make sure that you're clear on everything.
So,
No real estate.
It was just you, President Matoush, for the retail center?
For the retail center, it's Commissioner Slater Carter and myself.
Oh, okay. Yep.
I can make a request too. Can we get a copy of that when it's finalized, just so all the commissioners have a copy?
Yeah.
Next, right, at the next meeting. So,
And do we publish this list on our website?
Yes.
Yeah, we have to vote.
Yeah, it's already,
And it's on- and, you know, and then
it's an appointment.
Okay.
Did we cover the Marines?
Yes, we did.
The what?
The Ocean Science.
Yeah, you and
Ocean
Kat.
Science.
that's right.
And I think that fits very well with the retail concept.
Yeah, it's gonna fit in that one too. Yeah.
All right, moving on to item G2, Surface Beach Replenishment Pilot Project Permit Requirements and Timelines. I think that there's so much detail there. I don't know if there's anything high level that you'd like to expand, but the one thing this absolutely demonstrates to the public is the amount of complexity, as has been mentioned before, on getting our permits, and how many people are constantly interjecting themselves, and how many agencies are interjecting themselves and preventing us from making visible progress on projects for the public. In Washington, DC, as Commissioner Domerat mentioned, he was talking about it with some of our federal officials. And it's just wild. There isn't a person in this room or at the Harbor District either that is against the projects that we want to do, yet we're handcuffed by the things that are mentioned in this report.
Yeah, the permitting.
Mr. Moran, do you have anything to add to this now that we finally got a document that shows all of our roadblocks?
I think, as you describe, is pretty self-explanatory. We've been giving updates in the last 3 board meetings with regard to progress and our anticipation when the project hopefully will begin this spring. This document that our consultant Dan has put together better explains to the commission as was requested, and to more importantly, I guess, to the public, all of the challenges that we have overcome to get us to the point that we are at now. And it has been, as you can see in the memo that our consultant put together, has been a significant challenge to get us to where we are. We do have Brad Damitz, our consultant, available right now if the board does want to delve into this in more depth.
Do we, can I ask, do we have a drop dead date as to what's the last possible date we can get all the permits and still do the work this year?
That'd be a better question. I do not believe so. I think that, I don't think there's a specific date, but at
Some kind of time frame.
At some point, we would have to postpone if we don't have everything in order. At present, though, our consultant is confident. that we will be
Still
able
optimistic?
to-
Okay.
For the eelgrass issue, it's like October that we have to be able to have started construction or something like that.
That'd be a better question to get accurate from Brad Damis.
Is Brad available?
Yeah, he's on. Melanie, you want to let him speak?
I'd like to point out that we have comments that are sometimes thrown out by the head of the Monterey Bay Marine Sanctuary, for instance, a year and a half ago, said that we have all the permits we need and everything's ready to proceed. And that just simply wasn't a correct statement.
Can I make a quick comment?
Commissioner Chankrali.
So in every meeting that I went to for our group for CMAC, and when we met with the legislators, I brought up the difficulties with the processes, and the permits, right? I mean, in California has probably that extra layer, a few extra layers, but primarily Coastal Commission. But Congresswoman Napolitano, I think if we can go, and I think even Congressman member Garamendi and Huffman, is it Congressmember Huffman from Marin County? Because he's got to deal with that. He represents Crescent City, who was there. So we just have to just keep letting them know, and they'll, it's going to take just more than the San Mateo County Harbor District to do this, right? So this is where I think partnering heavily with CMAC could help. So I don't know, Jim, I mean, you were in our meetings, if there's any way that we can remind Jim Hausner that, you know, if the permitting and streamlining the processes is going to be beneficial, then, you know, maybe as a group, we can press with the legislators that we met, because we met with every single, almost in person, with almost every, I think 99% of them.
I was going to follow up with each of the members that we met with. And this is a good enclosure for that follow-up. Because we all discussed permitting issues that have delayed this project by almost a decade now.
We weren't the only ones. That's what I'm saying. It's us, and then, you know, maybe working with Jim to have them do another letter, and then maybe having him have each one of the ports and harbors in
I'll discuss with
California.
them.
Yeah, some plan. This is just back of the napkin, but I think that we could be a pretty good group if we keep pushing it.
Commissioner Slater Carter.
I asked to have this on the agenda, and I really want to thank
Thank you,
John
Bill.
for
John.
following up.
Yeah.
I think it's a critical piece of information for people to have. Look at Highway 1 out here. If we had had our sand in place 5 years ago and had been building it up,
Yeah.
there might not be the serious and dangerous erosion across a public trail that is probably undercutting into the highway right now. This is a critical issue, and everybody, again, want to poke fingers at the local little district when the bigger problem is a huge mass bureaucracy. And they all have a justifiable mission, but none of them in their mission statement says, let's all work together to keep the environment safer at a cost that folks who live here can afford. I've been talking to people running for election recently, and one of the common comments that they hear is cost of living. Well, this project has taken 7 years, probably 5 years too long. And the costs have gone up incredibly in the last time period.
Time is money.
Time is
Yeah.
money, and we are, not we, the county is paying for this through the harbor district monies. The county citizens, not the county government, not coastal, none of the other projects. And yet the demand for the beach restoration has been here. People have been asking for it. I moved here in 1978, and it was a request then. So it's been a little while, and I will add, one of the things that has happened in that time period is the eelgrass has established itself in the harbor in the last, couple of years.
Yeah.
And that has added a whole nother layer of bureaucracy and complexity. If the eelgrass can start itself here, maybe we could find some place to set aside for eelgrass to start itself somewhere else and get on with the dredging, which is important. Pretty soon, we're going to look at this harbor. It's going to all be eelgrass, and we're going to be the San Mateo County Eelgrass Reserve, not the harbor. Oh, thank you.
Now, John, would you like me to allow him to speak?
Just if the board has any other questions, only Brad can answer.
As and this is a comment more for Jim, but we ought to look at examples where some things kind of sort of work. We do have one in San Francisco Bay. It's called the DMMO, the Dredge Material Management Office. It's made up of all the agencies that have to determine sediment quality and where, sediment budgets and where the sediment ought to be placed. BCDC, which is the Coastal Commission of the Bay, Fish and Wildlife, I believe, EPA, Army Corps of Engineers, the marine sanctuaries are all part of that group. So that's a start to look at making things more efficient between Fed and state. There was a similar group that was more for discussion and information, but it was called the California Coastal Sediment Management Work Group. Again, all of the agencies, federal and state and local, that had anything to do with sediments on the open coast got together. And when there was challenges with projects, the staffers were all sitting there and they would all talk together and can you improve this? Can you speed this up? You know, so there are some examples of things that we ought to look at and kind of maybe codify a little bit better for the coastal sediments. I think that coastal sediment work group kind of faded away a little bit. I think they're still, we used to meet monthly for 15 years. And now I think they barely meet once a year. But the efficiency was all the staffers sit down amongst the agencies and can kind of talk and optimize how they do business. DMMO has been around for quite some time. It's been very successful for dredging the big projects of Oakland and San Francisco. And so, and it's, you know, they're online. You can look up a lot of that stuff, but that, you know, that's something that we can take back as examples of things that can work a little better than what we've experienced so far. So thank you.
Well, and just for the record, this agency had to test all our soils when we were holding dredging spoils at the airport, and they all came out very clean. I will note that one PR problem that this district has is the old perception that the harbor was so polluted. And we've got the documentation to show it's not, but that's a, so it would be nice to have some kind of another third party to say, no, our dredging spoils, you're operating under old bad information, which I find a lot of bureaucracies do. And our dredging spoils are not polluted.
Well, I don't think we'll ever get away from not doing sediment sampling and testing before a dredging project because it changes year to year. You have to do that part. But yes, all of ours have always turned out pretty clean. Ours being Pillar Point Harbor. Yeah.
Did we have our consultant ready for a couple of questions?
And Melanie says he's not a panelist. You've not
Am I
put him in
on?
his- There he is.
Hi,
Here
Brad.
we go. Hey guys,
Brad.
sorry about that. Can I? Okay,
Question
I
was-
think I'm on audio, but not video.
Yes.
Yes.
You're
Yeah.
on, but one of the questions was a drop dead date this year to get the dredging project and how close bureaucratically we are to being able to meet that.
And if we can't, is there another date? I mean, it just keeps getting pushed out further and further.
Yeah,
It's crazy. It's crazy, Brad.
I know it's crazy. It's a tough situation. Believe me, I'm not happy about it. I think we're still on for the summer. As I heard from the agencies, I think we're very close to approval from the Army Corps. The thing that held that whole process up is that we had worked for a couple of years to come up with a proposed eelgrass mitigation plan. But when it came down to actually doing the permit process, submitting the applications, and National Marine Fisheries Service does their Endangered Species Act consultation with the Army Corps, then they had noticed some concerns that they didn't have. It was a change in staff, and we had to completely reconfigure our plans, including several different iterations. And the most recent one has been approved at the end of last year, and they're just finalizing, waiting for basically supervisor review and signature. So I think the Army Corps is going to be taken care of very soon. The one that we really have no information about, but I've also been told that it's fairly close, is the sanctuary permit. And the issue there is they just can't tell us the status, which is, I guess, just the policy of the sanctuary. But, you know, there's too many unknowns at this point. But we've been really pushing the agencies and letting them know over the past 2 years what our intentions were as far as schedule and stuff. And folks still understand that we need to get the project out to bid ASAP to start this summer. And I'm still very optimistic that that is going to happen. It's just I can't come here and say, you know, we have our permits, we can do this. We've got everything geared up and ready to go as soon as we do get those approvals. But we learned the hard way in the West Trail Living Shoreline project that it's not advisable to put the project out to bid until you have all the permits in hand, because there can be changes. In that case, there was some lawsuit that came because of the change of administration, and we really had to push hard, contacting elected officials and stuff to pull that through. And it was a really very stressful experience. So I come here and tell you I don't have any update, but I'm still optimistic about it. And as soon as I hear anything back, we will let you know what the plan is. No, that's not a very.
Is there anything we can do as commissioners to aid you? Is there anybody that you'd suggest that we should talk to? Anything the administration? How can we push this a little harder?
Yeah, I've inquired with the agencies about that, maybe getting letters sent and stuff. And I've been assured by Army Corps and National Marine Fisheries Service that it wouldn't help the timeline. They're accelerating as fast as they can. I suppose it probably couldn't hurt to remind the sanctuary how important this project is and the need to construct it because of the condition of the coastal trail and Highway 1. But I can't say that there's any guarantees that any of that would help at this point. I mean, it's been pretty clear. We've sent photos to all of the agency staff and management. They're aware of the situation. I think it's just a project that hasn't been done in the National Marine Sanctuary before, and permitting staff at the sanctuary aren't quite as familiar with this type of project as they are with others. So it just takes a lot of extra review. There's a lot of repetition, many different agencies reviewing the same documents. It really is not an efficient system whatsoever.
Do we have any other comments here?
Yeah, one question, I guess, the 401 water quality certification, as I read through the paper, it sounds like they're waiting that final approval of that until the Marine Sanctuary gives final blessing on the eelgrass mitigation plan. How
So
long do we expect that to take? Once that final approval's made on that plan, how long would it take then to get the 401 certificate?
Yeah, so that should be a fairly quick turnaround, a matter of weeks. That's not one that's going to hold us up. And the deal with the 401 certification permit is that they need to have the full set of plans. They needed to have, the final CEQA documents in hand before they can issue it. Whereas the rest of the permits, you can apply while some of the details are still being worked out. So we couldn't submit that application until we had approval from National Marine Fisheries Service and Army Corps. But that has been done. It's been several weeks. And, I don't anticipate that holding up the project. They actually have a pretty good system, where they're required to reply within a certain number of days. And those are things that are missing. For example, like from Monterey Bay Sanctuary, we don't know. There's nothing in their criteria for issuing permits that says staff has to reply within 30 days like they do at the Coastal Commission, which helps move things along. The only thing that I could find in the Monterey Bay Sanctuary criteria is that the permittee, the applicant, has to reply within 30 days. And we've done that for sure. We've been very responsive. So I'm hoping that, we haven't received any more questions from them recently. I'm hoping that process is wrapping up as well.
Okay, thanks.
So, Brad, does it make sense, like, as I kind of mentioned to Jim, I think he's going to follow up with the congressional legislators whom we met.
Mhm.
Does it make sense to just keep pushing that with them while it's fresh in their minds?
I think so. And, you saw I think most of you saw the memo that I put together, and it had a heck of a lot of detail in there, but I kind of felt like it needed to be done just because there's so many different phases of, not only the planning project, but then once we get to permitting, then it becomes even more complex. Now that we have documentation of that, I think this is a good time to remind them. I would say that
Yeah, I would push that.
the state agencies, I think, are definitely revising the way that they do things, becoming more efficient with the issuing of permits. And I know that the federal agencies have a desire to do that as well. I just haven't really seen it quite so much in practice. But I think this is an important time to remind them of that, and they need to put some emphasis on it. One of the biggest problems is just staffing. You know, you have all these regulations and then very few people
Yeah.
permits, and then staff is constantly changing. So each time somebody changes, it's a whole different set of meetings. And, you know, it's just something that could be much better orchestrated.
That would be a good follow-up.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Gomrat?
Just kind of a more semi-technical question. Based on the storms of last year and this year, are we seeing a reduction or an increase in the eelgrass beds? I heard rumblings that we may be seeing a reduction in the amount of eelgrass.
We're seeing a large reduction in the size of the eelgrass beds in the East Basin dredging areas, which is, I suppose, that's good news for the district, because that means the requirements for the amount of eelgrass that we have to mitigate for are going down. Initially in 2019, when we did that first survey, we were about at the limits of what we could mitigate for within the harbor. And that was one of the challenges that we had, just trying to find a place for it and squeezing it in. Now that there's much less, it'll make that easier. Where we did see an expansion is in the area where we're going to be mitigating in the West Basin. So that has expanded quite a bit. And I would attribute the decrease in eelgrass in the East Basin to two things. One of them is the shoaling, the waves overwashing, all that sand coming through is just smothering it and burying it. But another one that's a huge impact is if you ever go during a low tide, you'll see the clammers out there just digging everything up.
Yeah.
I think that's really devastating them. But yeah, definitely.
All right.
Thank you.
There's no further comments. We'll move on to item 3.
Just one thing, Brad, we know, we all appreciate the hard work you've done in building relationships with all of our counterparts at the different permitting agencies. It is time now, I think I'm hearing from our board, that we would like to do everything and be able to say that we've done everything to meet the deadlines for the project eelgrass mitigation to begin this summer, as we're optimistic it will. You know, we're not wanting to kind of just sit back and keep our fingers crossed and later wish that we had put a little bit more pressure on. So please send me an email with any contact persons that you think might be beneficial from the different agencies. I know we're still waiting on a biological opinion, are we not? So that from NIMS and Army Corps.
Yep, last I've heard, that's just days away, so.
Okay, well, I know that's what they're telling us.
Right, exactly. I'll get you a list of all the staff.
Yeah, thank you, Brad.
And I put together, I'm not going to do it today, obviously, but I did put together a presentation, a PowerPoint, and maybe in the future meeting, we can go through it, because it has a lot of the background in a little bit more detail. And I know it's not really appropriate for today, but.
Well, your memo was very thorough.
Sure it was.
Yeah. So I mean, thanks for that, Brent and John. I look at it, it's all going hand in hand. And so Catherine, thanks for, you know, requesting that this type of timeline and the roadblocks be put together. I just think now we can act, and we should strike while the iron is hot with the legislators and really push it, Jim, because they've heard it. And it wasn't just from us. Every harbor and port had the same issues across the state.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brad.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for the technical difficulties in the beginning.
We're on to item G3, mid-year budget review. Julie.
Thank you, President Mateusz, commissioners, good morning. Melanie, can you go back to the staff report
Oh, okay.
and the second page of the staff report? Thank you. So overall, the district expects that all spending categories will be in the approved appropriation limits for this fiscal year 23 or 23-24. Operating revenues are tracking at 47.4% of budget for the first 6 months and are expected to slightly increase the second half of the year. Non-operating revenues are expected to proceed, or projections are expected to be over projections by $150,000 due to the higher than anticipated investment earnings. Salary and benefits are 42.8% of the budget for the first 6 months. And the salary savings are from vacant positions, employees on leave, and later than anticipated implementation of salary increases for OE3 employees. The operating expenditures are 40.4% of the budget and are expected to increase the second half of the year. Certain line items such as vessel destruction, travel and training, and repairs and maintenance costs are expected to increase the second half of the year over and above the first half of the year. Total capital expenditures are tracking below budget and will increase in the second half of the year, most notably by the $8.7 million associated with the land purchase that occurred in this past January. We are starting the year off better than we had projected during the budget by about $5 million. And that was due to higher than expected property taxes of $1 million, lower than expected salary and benefits of $1 million, and then the timing differences associated with capital project programs. John just had a presentation of why the spending isn't going into the year that we're projecting it to be spent in, but those appropriations will be approved. The money's available when we go out to bid for the Surfers Beach restoration. This next year, we're expected to be on budget. So it's estimated that we'll have around $5 million of unreserved, unappropriated funds to earmark for future projects. And so that concludes that presentation. If you have any specific questions on the budget, I'd be happy to answer those.
Commissioners?
If I can add just to emphasize the mid-budget review, was great job by Julie. But I wanted to emphasize that this is the result of the positive review, in my opinion, is very positive, is a lot of hard work by every staff member at the Harbor District. The property taxes, that's a great gift for us. We can use that money. But the lower than anticipated salary and benefits, we worked on that. And then number 3, lower than expected costs, primarily due to less spending on utilities, legal fees, repair and maintenance, travel, training, and bad debt expense. So our bad debt expense is going down. We're managing our travel and training very closely. Repair and maintenance, we're doing repair and maintenance when it's needed, but we're doing it very efficiently. Legal fees, we're managing much better than in years past. And then also utilities, we're watching those, try to lower as much as possible. So that, $636,000 is a direct result of the hard work of staff to bring it back money to the district or keep money in the district. And then the salary is the same thing, 1.2 million that we expected to spend on salaries, but we did not. So just want to commend the team for that, and wanted to highlight to both of the board and the public what we're doing.
I totally agree with what Jim just said, totally. So thank you, Julie. and a major kudos to your team. I have seen this budget evolve, quite frankly, for the better since, well, I'm going to be very blunt, 2019. And it's been able to, it's allowed us to make these purchases of the properties and, do the things that we need to do to improve the harbor. And so I'm so grateful for that. And I really want to thank you, Julie, and your team, but I also want to thank the board for wanting this too, for giving the direction. And also working with staff to make sure that our finances are healthy. And I'm glad that we are able to be honest and open about any kind of issues and problems. And so I just appreciate the open communication with regard to the budget. And I just hope that this narrative of this positive momentum that we're having is going to go out to the public and, just so they know that we're working very hard as a board and as staff and working together to make sure that we're financially healthy. So thank you so much. And you too, Jim, because you got to manage all of this. So thank you.
Commissioner Slater Carter.
Well, I agree with the two previous speakers. I just wanted to say this is a mid-year.
You're right.
And not a full audit. And it shows we're on the right track. And I think the logo committee ought to come up with a phrase.
A dollar sign?
No, at sort of the authority mid-coast, we now call the whole organization Team Sam. And I think this organization from the board to the newest hire, we are a team. And I think we should call ourselves, I don't know, Team Ocean or Team Bay or something that recognizes that we're all working towards the same goals. And frankly, in the last couple of years, very successfully. And I'm proud of the entire team because it takes a team to make a complex organization like this work.
And might I add that one of the big items that allows us to get the budget presentation award year after year is that you have the input of what the goals of the district should be. And that is definitely a requirement for this presentation. And you're driving that, the goals of the district, and so we're here supporting those facts, but that's all part of this budget process too.
Very good. I'm glad to see that we're on the right track.
Yes.
And with that item behind us, it's time to adjourn the meeting and go into closed session.
Recording stopped.
Still postponement underway. Right, future agenda items, item J.
I'll move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Yes, of course.
Okay, roll call.
President Mateusz,
Aye.
Commissioner Zemke,
Aye.
Commissioner Domrat,
Aye.
Commissioner Jane Corrali,
Aye.
Commissioner Slater Carter.
Yes.
Okay. Just make it- Business. I will not be-
Recording
I will not be
stopped.
at the next meeting.
Yes.